The Frosty Embrace of Friendship by Reuben White. The cottage sat nestled in a remote corner of a distant land, a small speck amid a vast expanse of snow-covered wilderness. The land was silent, save for the occasional gusts of wind that swept through the tall pines and sent plumes of powdery snow swirling through the air. The cottage itself seemed to have been forgotten by time, its thatched roof sagging under the weight of countless winters, its windows obscured by frosty curtains that hid the world outside. Inside the cottage, an elderly woman named Eleanor moved about with the slow, deliberate steps of one who had lived long enough to feel the weight of the years. Her face was etched with lines that told stories of joy and sorrow, but lately, there had been far too much of the latter. Eleanor's husband had passed away many winters ago, and her children had moved on, leaving her alone in the cottage. The joy of Christmas, once a cherished part of her life, had faded like the memory of a distant dream. The tree that once stood tall in the corner of the cottage was now a relic of the past, gathering dust in the attic. The ornaments and decorations had long since been packed away, and the fireplace, which used to crackle with warmth during the holiday season, now lay cold and lifeless. Eleanor's heart, too, had grown cold and distant. She had retreated into herself, building a fortress of solitude to shield herself from the pain of loneliness. She rarely ventured out into the world, preferring the company of her own thoughts and memories. The world outside had become a place of strangers and unfamiliar faces, a place she no longer felt a part of. As another winter settled in, Eleanor's isolation seemed more profound than ever. She spent her days sitting by the window, watching the snow fall and listening to the haunting sound of the wind whistling through the trees. Her only company was the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner, a constant reminder of the passage of time. One cold and quiet evening, as Eleanor sat by the window lost in thought, she heard a faint tinkling sound, like the distant jingle of bells. She glanced around, her eyes searching for the source of the sound, but the cottage was empty, and she was alone. Just as she was about to dismiss it as a trick of her imagination, the tinkling grew louder, and suddenly, the room was filled with a soft, ethereal light. Eleanor's eyes widened as she watched in disbelief as a group of tiny figures materialized before her eyes. They were no taller than her hand and were dressed in the most colorful and elaborate clothing she had ever seen. The figures were Christmas elves, their pointed ears and mischievous smiles giving away their true nature. They danced and twirled around the room, leaving trails of glittering dust in their wake. Eleanor could hardly believe her eyes. She had heard tales of such creatures in her youth, but she had always thought them to be the stuff of legend. One of the elves, a particularly sprightly one with a red hat and green shoes, approached Eleanor and bowed low before her. "Greetings, dear lady," he said in a voice like tinkling bells. "We are the Christmas elves, and we have come to bring the joy of Christmas back to your heart." Eleanor blinked in astonishment. "Christmas elves? But how, why?" The elf smiled kindly. "We have been watching over you, dear lady, and we have seen the sadness that has settled in your heart. We are here to help you rediscover the magic of Christmas and the joy of life." Eleanor was torn between disbelief and a flicker of hope. She had long given up on the idea of ever experiencing the joy of Christmas again, but something about the elf's presence filled her with a glimmer of anticipation. "Come, dear lady," the elf said, extending a tiny hand towards her. "Join us on a journey to rediscover the wonders of the holiday season." With a mixture of curiosity and trepidation, Eleanor took the elf's hand, and in an instant, she felt herself being lifted off her feet. The world around her blurred as they soared through the air, leaving the cottage and the snowy landscape far behind. When Eleanor's feet finally touched the ground, she found herself in a place unlike any she had ever seen. It was a magical, winter wonderland, where the snow glistened like diamonds in the soft light of the moon. Enchanted forests stretched as far as the eye could see, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of pine and cinnamon. The Christmas elves led Eleanor through this enchanting world, showing her the beauty and wonder of the holiday season. They took her to a clearing where a majestic evergreen tree stood, its branches adorned with twinkling lights and shimmering ornaments. Eleanor was overcome with a sense of nostalgia as memories of Christmases past flooded her mind. As they walked deeper into the forest, they came upon a group of animals gathered around a bonfire. a fox, a rabbit, and a deer were roasting marshmallows and singing carols, their voices filling the air with warmth and cheer. Eleanor couldn't help but smile at the sight of these woodland creatures celebrating together. The elves then led her to a small village, where the inhabitants were busy preparing for a grand Christmas feast. The smell of roast turkey, fresh-baked bread, and spicy mulled wine wafted through the air, making Eleanor's mouth water. The villagers welcomed her with open arms, and she found herself laughing and chatting with them as if she had known them all her life. As the night wore on, the elves and Eleanor returned to the snowy landscape where they had first arrived. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over everything. Eleanor felt a warmth in her heart that she hadn't felt in years. She turned to the elves with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've shown me the magic of Christmas again, and I will never forget this night." The elf smiled and nodded, their eyes twinkling with mischief. "Remember, dear lady, the joy of Christmas is always within you. All you have to do is let it shine." With that, they bid her farewell and disappeared into the night, leaving Eleanor standing in the snow, her heart aglow with the spirit of Christmas. Eleanor returned to her cottage, but this time it felt different. The walls that had once felt like a prison now seemed like a cozy sanctuary. She unpacked the dusty ornaments from the attic and decorated the tree in the corner of the room. She baked cookies and hung stockings by the fireplace. And on Christmas morning, she invited the villagers from the magical world she had visited to join her for a feast in her cottage. The joy of Christmas had returned to Eleanor's heart, and it radiated out to those around her. The villagers became like family to her, and she was no longer alone in her cottage. The frosty curtains on the windows were replaced with sheer ones that let in the light, and the cottage seemed to come alive with warmth and laughter. As the years passed, Eleanor continued to embrace the magic of Christmas, sharing it with everyone she met. The memories of that enchanted night with the Christmas elves remained etched in her heart, a reminder that the joy of the holiday season could thaw even the coldest of hearts. And so, in the remote cottage in the distant land, the frosty embrace of loneliness was replaced by the warm embrace of friendship and the enduring magic of Christmas, proving that even in the darkest of times, the light of the holiday season could shine through. I'm looking forward to you joining in the fun on this channel. By tapping the subscribe button, like or follow. Thank you.